Hey guys, back at it out here. It is another gloriously hot August day. I spend half my time out here wiping the sweat off my forehead because I got one of those big fans, but it just it doesn't cut it. When it's hot, it's hot. You're just blowing hot air. Let's see. So this video today is going to be kind of all over the place. I'm working on lots of things. I'm still working on the fuselage, and you see me in the background. I'm working on getting those floor ribs in and, match drilling everything, dimpling all the skins, and then doing a back rivet of all of the pieces together. Back riveting is the way to go. I think I'll talk to that here in a minute. The one thing I'm waiting for is a tool to come in, which I'll talk to in a minute as well. So I kind of had to stop and pause on that and start looking for other things to do. So I've started working on my wings again. I had said long ago that I was going to, once it was summer and I could dry out a tank in a reasonable amount of time, like minutes, seriously, I would get my tanks finished to that end, and I'll talk to this later. I am working on my right tank right now, and I have got my left tank mounted on the left wing so I can finish closing it up and finally finish that sucker. So yeah, all over the place, lots of stuff going on. I hope you enjoy it. So I'm waiting right now to get I think it's 12.5-inch back rivet tool that goes into my rivet gun so that I have a nice long throw. It's not only 12 inches long, but it's offset. The idea is I can put it up against a rib and I still have room for the gun. So that's coming. I need that to be able to do these row of rivets right here that's deep down in. I could conceivably do it with two people, but even with two people, it's really long and awkward. And I thought I would get much better results with back riveting. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just waiting for that to come. That's like a $50 tool. Worth it to me if the results are good. You can see here that I did go ahead and cut that door in the side there. I had talked about it in a previous video, cutting it, and I had decided not to because of the whole, perfection is the enemy of progress notion. I want to eventually get this plane actually finished. So, and the more stuff I try to do, it's really hot. The more stuff I try to do, the longer it's going to take. But after talking to a number of people, they're like, you really want to have that door because getting in there to access that fuel filter is it's much easier than pulling the entire center console out because there's a bunch of stuff that goes in there. So, okay, went ahead and did that. In the meantime, I'm also looking at finishing my tanks. So I've done my final leak test on my right fuel tank and left fuel tank, and it is as leak proof as I can make it. So I've gone ahead and got it ready to mount back up permanently on the wing, and also working on fitting the zip tip out there on that side too, because I want to again start that process of so many different things, and I'm kind of zipping around doing different stuff while I wait for things. So that's what's going on here, and I'm going home. It's hot. I'm gonna go sit in the air conditioning. So one of the sayings that I've heard many times, many times over and over again in building an airplane is that perfection is the enemy of progress. And I agree with that sentiment completely. You could spend a lot of time trying to perfect everything, and you're never going to get the plane built if you do that, right? It has to be good enough. If you aim for perfection, you're never going to finish because you're never going to get it perfect. We are imperfect creatures. All you can do is good enough. Now, having said that, I have seen some other people's work that kind of gave me a little bit of a pause, but good enough is good enough, is I guess what I'm saying. And I'm hoping, I'm no expert, I'm hoping that you guys feel that what I'm doing is good enough. If not, if you see a mistake or something like that, definitely comment down below, because hey, I learned from this. Like I said, I don't know everything, and some of you have expertise that I don't have. So by all means, please tell me. And if you like what I'm doing on this channel, if you do me a favor and click that like and subscribe button over there, it actually helps my rankings quite a bit. One thing though that I did want to talk to is wiring in the wings, and specifically with the zip tips. I had already run wire all through my wings, and the wire I was using is a wire I've used for years. It's a 22 gauge data wire. It's a 6 conductor 22 gauge shielded wire. It's mostly meant for data. I didn't really consider, or didn't really think it would be bad to use, so I thought, screw it, I'll just run it through the wing. I've got to pull it all out. The reason I'm pulling it out specifically is because I had no idea the amperage that the zip tips used. The strobes and whatnot, I think they max at like 9 amps. And that, you can't run 9 amps through a 22 gauge wire. I mean, that's just not gonna work. I need something a lot thicker than that. So I'm gonna yank all that wire out and build my own wire bundles, because there are several different gauges. So that's one of the things I get to look forward to soon. And thanks to my buddy Mark, appreciate it. I now have at least a understanding of how that works. Again, this is one of those things that's community driven. I really appreciate when I can reach out to one of you and say, help. And you guys have never failed me. You've all jumped up and helped where you could, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, back to it. Okay, so you guys just watched me do all of the back riveting on these floor ribs. And I did the same thing where I could with these two little short ribs, but I couldn't actually back rivet them because of this overlapping flange. What they've got here on these is they're kind of in an S, so I can use my back rivet jig, you know, easily, lots of room. Well, I can't do that here. So I use the squeezer and the long 4-inch yoke that I have to get the first 3 rivets, but then these next 4, I can't reach them. So what I'm gonna do is have to figure out a way to use a bucking bar and the gun to do these awkwardly. Like, this is going to be really awkward. I need to see if I can just, now that I've got these ribs on, it'll be a lot more stiff, so I'll be able to hold it up maybe and get it that way. But other than that, back riveting these guys on, that is the way to go. Super, super easy. I did put some tape, you know, on here to kind of help protect the skin, because the edges of this back riveting plate, as you move it around, if you don't have something on here, it will kind of scratch it up a little bit. So thankfully that didn't happen. The rivets all look good. So I just got to figure out how to get these 8 rivets done, and then I can move on. So good times. So with regard to how I did those 8 rivets, that's some of the footage that I lost. I actually didn't lose as much footage as I thought I did, but what I had done is I took the whole thing with those 2 forward ribs with those 8, 4 and 4 rivets that I missed. I took the whole thing and I stood it up, and I literally drilled holes in my table. I mounted it to the table, and then just used a bucking bar and rivet gun to get those 4 rivets. It actually was really trivial. So right here you see me going through. I had to put the whole center front section up and dimple all of the center ribs. I somehow missed it. You actually see me going back over to the plans and flipping through it, trying to find, where did I miss this? But it's just one of those steps that I somehow, jumped over. These steps are like a long paragraph, and to have one sentence in there, and sometimes I miss it. I try to be very careful about it, but mistakes happen. So I went back and I dimpled everything, and then I got it all set and in place. And then I lifted up the front end a little bit, because around that forward engine firewall, I'm going to put a layer of Pro Seal per the plans to seal it and then rivet that front bit. And so that's why I've got it lifted up right there in preparation for the Pro Seal. So real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about an inconsistency in the plans. That's what you're about to see. Again, as with all things, I come off a little harsh on vans. I don't mean to, but it is something that I did discover, and I will actually give you the resolution after this. So what I've been looking at is something that's kind of frustrating. Inconsistency in the plan sometimes can be daunting. Specifically, I'm talking about the F1048C1, the fuel valve bracket. That's this piece here. Now, I even mentioned, I believe, in one of my previous videos that it's entirely possible to put it in backwards, and that, in fact, the quick build version of the plane that Lynn got, it was put around backwards. Well, I can understand now why they put it in backwards. Not only are the rivets set up such that, yeah, you can put it in any way you want, either backwards or even upside down, because it's just 3 identical rivets on each side, but the plans show it differently everywhere. On 27-4, there's a picture of it, how you're supposed to put it in, and that's how I actually assembled it. But on the very next page, you have not only this picture, but also this picture here on 28-1, so on 27-6 and 28-1, on opposite pages, they're in different orientations. On 27-6, it's flipped around backwards, and on 28-1, it's upside down. Really, guys? So, what the heck? And so now I'm like, okay. And then you come over here on 28-7, it's both upside down and backwards. Wow. Really? All I can do, I keep going farther into the plans, and it looks like they all have it set so that it's upside down and flipped around backwards. They're pointing, the pointy part is pointing towards the rear of the airplane, but it's upside down, it's flipped over. That is not, specifically not how it teaches you or tells you to put it in on the page where you're actually putting it in. So I'm hoping it really doesn't matter. I will give Vans a call and find out. But that is easily the most inconsistent thing I have seen in these plans by far, where you literally have, there's 4 possible orientations for this part, and there are 4 different pictures with 4 different ways they've got it in here. So that implies to me they messed up pretty bad, or it doesn't matter. And I'll find out and let you know. Okay, so quick update. I did not end up reaching out to Vans. Instead, I reached out to a number of different people via email and social media, as well as checking with some people around the airport locally. And the overwhelming consensus is that it doesn't matter which way it is. Based on the fact that my set of plans, the date down in the bottom right corner for the 2 different images is the same date. So that means they are aware, and maybe they did it intentionally, that they showed that it can be either way, it doesn't really matter. And in fact, if you go all the way to the end of the plans where you're actually installing the part, it shows it exactly as I have it installed. So I just don't think it matters. So I'm not gonna reach out to Vans. I think that might have been something they did intentionally. I don't know, I could be wrong. Okay, so I don't know how much of this got recorded and how much of it didn't. I'll have to go back and check the footage. Basically, I was trying to record all this work and the camera stopped recording because it was full and I didn't notice. So, oops. Anyways, I decided to go ahead and put a fuel filter access panel in the side of this rib here. To that end, I've got a thin piece of scrap that I have stiffened with a J stiffener and a couple very thick pieces of aluminum bar in here. So this is actually pretty stiff. It's about the same stiffness as the other one that doesn't have the hole in it. Cut it out, gave some good rounding on this is not sharp at all, so this is like very round. So shouldn't have any cracking or anything like that. This is not really a structural support or anything like that, so this shouldn't be too big of a deal. I was gonna put another stiffening bar in here. I'm checking the plans now because there's a bunch of stuff that goes in here and I don't want to screw anything up, but eventually I want to put another J stiffener in here just to make sure that I didn't weaken this part. But long story short is, inside here on these couple of, I don't know what you call these, gussets or whatever these brackets are that are in here. It's where your fuel filter and stuff is. And so I want to make sure I have access to this. So normally the way you would do this is you'd have to unscrew every single one of these and pull the entire center console off. After talking to a couple of different pilots, that is a colossal pain in the butt. Especially once you have all the stuff that's in here, and having a side access is just infinitely preferable. So I have done that. I know I had said in a previous video that I wasn't going to do it, but Lynn came over and he's like, no, you really want to do that. So after hearing some of the pain that they had to go through to make this happen, or, you know, get in there, and then he later added this, I went ahead and added one. So anyways, that's the idea. Simple fabrication. This fits on here like so, just 4 screws for now. If there's any vibration or anything like that, there's plenty of room here to add 2 more screws, top and bottom. Easy peasy, nothing to it. Sorry if the recording of all the work didn't actually record, but there you go. So now I need to get a vacuum out here and vacuum up all the debris, because there's a lot, and then keep working on all the things. Fun. All right, it's another leak test time. So I filled up this tank. This is my left tank to the absolute brim, looking for another leak. The outside is completely dry except for one spot right down here. This little yellow arrow you can see, I've got it pointing at the hole. That's actually a screw hole, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna fix that yet. I may put a bunch of Pro Seal in there, screw a screw in, let it seal, and then pull the screw out, because I'll be able to get it out, and hope that works. I'm also going to attack it from inside, because again, it's something up underneath inside. I mean, it's covered in Pro Seal, so I have no idea why it's leaking from there. But that is the only place this one's leaking. When I did the front of the firewall, there's a place on there where you're supposed to apply a little bit of Pro Seal down across the bottom, and so I had some extra Pro Seal, so I put it around this. Is why this was what this was waiting for, was to have this sealed before I finish this. So once I address this little leak, I'm going to go ahead and work on sealing the back, which means I'm probably going to address that little leak and seal the back at the same time. So that's where we're at on here. I'm excited about this. I am going to go pour some diesel fuel in the other tank and let it sit. I did have someone ask me what the secret to this is, or if this just sucks. No, it just sucks. The secret, though, is when you're doing your air testing, don't blow up the air too much, because if you put too much pressure in, you'll actually induce leaking. So hopefully I did not do that when I was doing my previous testing. I'm excited that this is it has worked out as well as it has. So now on to doing the last final fuel test before sealing this sucker up for good and finally finishing my darn wings. Ugh. Okay. So right here, what you're seeing me do is I'm prepping my wingtip by cutting off a little bit of J stiffener that I had just extended just beyond the rib, just enough to be problematic when it came to putting the zip tip on the end. So I had to cut that off in order to mount the zip tip on there, then to get an idea of where I needed to start trimming the zip tip. So that's what I'm doing here. So here you can see I've got the tank hung. It's actually hung up on the wing as it's supposed to be. I've got all the bolts, or I'm actually bolting it together now, but then I go through and I screw everything in. On the other side, I've got all of the screws about halfway in. It's kind of awkward with the other wing right there. I should have, when I built my jig, I wish I would have built it so that I could like lever them apart so I can get in there and work on it. I didn't really think I would have to, because, you know, it's a finished skin right there, what I need to work on. So think about that when you're building your jigs. Maybe having 2 wing jigs instead of 1 that holds both wings is a better idea, just for thought. But I've got the tank hung up there. That's the left tank. Got it working. I'm going to finish the bottom skin on that. I'm super excited about that. I finally get to have 1 tank, or 1 wing finished. Hopefully in a video too, I'll actually show it finished. I did test the hell out of that tank. I put about 4 gallons of gas in it, sloshed it around and set it up, and I had a giant leak coming out of one end. I'm like, oh no! Yeah, it was actually the hole that the fuel's supposed to come out of. I forgot to put the cap on. So whoops. Once I got that all done, no leaks at all. I was super happy. I don't know how I managed it, but that tank doesn't leak, so I'm stoked. I hope to be able to do the same thing on the other one. And then soon I'm going to be working on getting the zip tip finally affixed to the end. Now, someone had asked in a previous video if I was going to use nut plates and screws to put the zip tip on, or just use blind rivets, and I'm still thinking about it. It seems like putting screws is, I mean, obviously screws is an option if you want to be able to take that thing on and off, which is important if you're using the old method, the method that Vans actually sent, because there's no like door access there. But with the zip tips, they have this beautiful access door, and so you have full access to the inside of there. So I'm thinking maybe blind riveting that thing on is actually viable. I mean, why do I need to put screws? So I'm going to kick it around. I'm not sure yet. On the one hand, I mean, both work, both are right. How often will I need to pull that thing off? Screws will make pulling that thing off much easier, but I don't think I'll ever need to do that. I don't know. I'm still kicking it around. I may go the route of the screws anyways, just because if I ever have to replace one, that's, you know, that would be easier. But good question. I'd love to hear you guys' advice down below if you guys have an opinion. Honestly, quicker and easier is certainly pop rivets, and I can always drill those out and put screws on later if I want to just get it done. But in the interest of actually doing it correctly, maybe putting nut plates and screws is the better way to go. So I'm still kicking it around. Anyways, guys, thank you so very much. That's where I'm going to cut this one short. I really appreciate it. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, if you do me a favor, jump over to my Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you guys can help me continue to make these. It just lets me know that you appreciate what I am doing. And if you guys want to build a plane, and you absolutely can, if you build a plane when you order one of your Vans kits, whether it's a 3, a 10, or 14, whatever, if you use my builder number, which is down in the comments below, Vans will send me $100. It's money out of their pocket, not yours. It costs you nothing. It's just a way of them saying thank you for getting the message out there. So anyways, guys, thanks so much. See you next time. 600. 600. Wow. 600. So this is the 600th audio file that I have made while working on the airplane on this device. So kind of cool. Anyway.